Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today we are featuring the Marvel Spider-Man 2-pack featuring Spider-Man versus Venom. Recommended for ages 4 and up. Okay, so I bought this at my local Target yesterday. I believe it was retailed for $21.99. I first saw this set maybe a week or two ago, and for whatever reason, I keep on eyeballing it whenever I'm at the store. There's something very appealing about this style of toy. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if it's, my inner child, or maybe it's because I'm kind of burned out on Marvel Legends. But the past few weeks, every time I was at the store, I'd always just pick this up and take a look at it, but I couldn't pull the trigger. But yesterday I kind of changed my mind. I'm like, I must really want this thing if I keep on, just staring at it. So here we are. So this is clearly aimed at younger kids. This isn't aimed at, the older collector. The package design, it's very kid friendly. It's meant to be handled and toyed around with. It's not enclosed. It's an open air package. There's no window, so immediately a parent or a child could pick this up at the store and handle it and get a feel for what the toy is actually like. And I think that was one of the things that kind of appealed to me also. The fact that when I saw this, it kind of screamed, just play with me. The one thing that kind of turned me off though from purchasing this the past few weeks is that for this 2-pack, it's priced at $21.99. Initially, I thought it was a little bit priced too high, but then the more I thought about it, I think this is kind of like the right price point for a 2-pack, especially since this is a Hasbro product and it's a more budget priced action figure. For example, like the Avengers Mech Strike line, which was clearly a budget toy line, those figures ran anywhere between $9.99 and $10.99. There's a Spider-Man budget toy line that's coincided with the recent movie. Those are priced anywhere between $9.99 and $10.99. Likewise, the Avengers Gamerverse figures from maybe like a year and a half ago, those are about $9.99. So if you priced each one of these figures at $9.99, for this set to be retail for like $21 kind of makes sense. I guess I just had a hard time, justifying it. But now that I have it in hand, I'm kind of glad that I did buy this. I'm really excited about the Venom figure. I think he looks awesome. The Spider-Man looks fun too. This almost borderlines more on like the aesthetic of like a play school toy, which I don't have a problem with. On the back of the box, it's pretty cool. Some fun fig photography. You got a nice fun shot of Venom here. And then Spidey, and here he is. It comes with a rocket launcher. For whatever reason, toy companies, they kind of firmly believe that children just want to play with toys that shoot projectiles. And, I'm not going to argue with them because as a kid I did enjoy that. I think for me, though, the big issue was just like losing the rocket or the missile. And it's fun here. You see a cool photo of how the rocket, works. And there's even like a small little rocket graphic, so we get the point. So yeah, this is very fun looking. Retails for $21.99, and I'm excited to check this out. So let's get started. Whoops, drop that. All right, so so the reason why I'm kind of snipping this out is because I don't want to destroy the package completely, because part of me actually wants to actually possibly repackage this and just keep it on display on card, because I kind of like the design of it. I have a background in graphic design, so I'm kind of into like package design and typography and that kind of stuff, and illustration and graphic design work. I do kind of like how they're kind of like aware of using different colored ties for each figure, so it's not like an eyesore. For example, Spidey has the red ties versus Venom, which is using the black ties. Let me adjust my lighting also. Okay, so we have Venom, we have Spidey, and the rocket launcher I'm gonna leave in here for now. So let's just set this aside. Let's get this. All right, there we go. All right, first off, let's take a look at the size of the action figures. Let's start with Spidey first, since he's the smaller of the two. Spidey comes in at about a little over 5.5 inches. Wait, I take it back. It might be 5.5 exactly. Yeah, about 5.5, give or take a hair. Venom comes in at about a little under 5.5. So Venom appears to be a shorter figure. But it's just, I don't know, kind of surprised me because I thought he'd be a little bit taller. But he's a much bulkier action figure. A lot of mass to this guy. All right, let's start with Spidey first. I'm gonna take a look at him. All right, so this is clearly aimed at children. So, you know, I know some people, especially older collectors, if you're more in line with like the Marvel Legends stuff, this is something you're probably not going to really appreciate unless maybe you have children. Because, you know, this isn't as detailed or as premium feeling as like a Marvel Legends figure. You know, this is very much in line with some of the other budget Hasbro toys that fall in at this price range. One of the legs might be stuck. That's kind of bothering me. I think. Oh, there you go. I got it free. Yeah, so I've had issues in the past with a couple. I mean, this, you know, isn't this like limited to the budget figures, but also Marvel Legends. But I have bad luck with like stuck figure joints. And there's been a couple of videos where I'll review a figure and the joint will actually be stuck, and I'll say I'm not going to mess around with it. And then the minute I'm done filming the video, I'll mess around with it, and it'll actually just be broken. So this joint on his right leg, it felt stuck at first, but I was able to shimmy it, and it feels like it's normal. It doesn't have that weird like gummy feeling. Like if you ever handled a figure with a stuck joint that's actually broken, you know, chances are it's actually just really stuck, and it has like a gummy feeling when you're like trying to move it. But looking past that, it's a nice figure. It's a bright shade of red. It's coming off a little bit glossier on my camera than in real life. In real life, it's a little bit more of a matte finish. His webbing is actually scribed into his costume. It's not like a relief. You know, if you're a customizer, you could probably take, you know, like a wash to the webbing, and, you know, all the ink will like fill up the recesses, and it'll look pretty nice. But for what it is and for what you're paying for, I think it's a decent sculpt. You know, this is clearly aimed at kids, and I don't think kids are going to be that selective or that picky about how detailed or how accurate Spidey's costume is. And speaking of his costume, this looks like it's based off some of the more recent iterations of Spidey's costume from maybe like the last 15 years. You know, for some of you older fans, you might remember that Spidey's costume, like from the shoulder, actually attaches to the forearm. And, you know, this guy's been missing the webbing, but that's always been kind of like give or take. You know, not every version of Spidey's costumes had the webbing underneath his arms. I like the proportions of the figure too. You know, this is clearly a little bit more cartoony, so he has a slightly larger head and a somewhat more stout build. You know, he doesn't necessarily have like super heroic proportions, even though he is a little bit more muscular. Like the distance from his shoulder to his elbow is a little bit shorter. His forearms are a lot longer. So his proportions are a little bit more on the cartoony side, but I think it's kind of fun though. I mean, this is Spider-Man. So in terms of Spidey's articulation, his head rotates. It doesn't really look down, doesn't really look up. So we're just getting left and right. His arms can rotate, they could go out. There's only, I believe, a single joint on the elbow, but there is elbow swivel. There is no wrist articulation, unfortunately, nor is there any waist articulation. His legs could kick forward, his knees could bend, and they could swivel also. But there is no thigh cut, there is no boot swivel, no ankle articulation. So this figure is just kind of slightly above like a 5-pointed articulated figure. You know, he just has the additional articulation in his elbows and his knees. But, you know, I think for a child, you know, they're not going to get crazy and be concerned about fig photography or about all the kind of poses you can get them in. Like, you're not going to be able to get them into the crazy, like, McFarlane, Eric Larson, Spidey swinging poses. You know, this guy's not going to be able to put his ankles behind his head or anything wild like that. But he does have the one web shooter hand, and then he has the C grip on his right hand. There's a socket on the back for, I believe, mounting the rocket launcher for storage. Yeah, so it's a solid figure. You know, if I had to rate this figure on a scale of 1 to 10, considering that it's a budget toy and for what it is, you know, a solid 7. You know, I think it's decent. You know, if you have like a son or daughter or niece or nephew that's really into Spider-Man, I think this is a great way, you know, to introduce them to like the Spider-Man toy line. It feels durable enough. Like, I don't think a kid, you know, a kid would have to get pretty crazy with it to actually like do some damage to this. But it's durable, it's decent. It's Spidey. And this figure is kind of hard to get into focus for some reason. I think it's the red. The red's kind of like super saturated. And to be honest, the red actually looks better on camera than in person. Like I said, in person, he comes off a little bit more matte. But for some reason on camera, he looks a lot more photogenic and a lot more glossy. And the red isn't as rich as it'll look like in the video. It looks really nice on the video, but in person, it's a little bit on the dull side. Moving on to the big guy, let's take a look at Venom here. So the one thing that really sold me on this Venom figure is the sculpting. I think the sculpting on this guy is fantastic. And like Spider-Man, for some reason this guy does not want to focus. Yeah, well, I don't know why this guy does not want to focus on my camera. There you go. All right, so here we have Venom. All right, the one thing that caught my eye immediately is I love the fact that they weren't shy about having Venom have his tongue out. And it's crazy, ridiculous how far his tongue is extending out of his mouth. You know, in some ways it's almost obscene. I don't think any of the Marvel Legends figures have a Venom with his tongue, you know, extruded this far out. And I love the fact that this is like big chunky Venom. This is the Venom that looks like he's a huge linebacker. He has like no neck. He's just all shoulders. It's crazy. You know, this really takes me back to like, you know, some of the earlier appearances of Venom when he was just kind of like hulked out and massive. You know, it always bothers me when artists portray Venom in the comic books, you know, being a little bit skinny or a little bit on the leaner side. But this is the kind of Venom I like to see. Just a giant, huge mass of like muscle. So this Venom, he still retains the crazy giant white eyes, the sharp teeth. You know, he has the spider emblem on his front, and it wraps around to his back like it should. You know, size-wise next to Spidey, is considered, he's a little bit taller, but Venom is considerably a lot larger in mass. You know, aesthetic-wise, you know, they both kind of fall more into that cartoon kind of like aesthetic. This guy especially with his proportions, you know, it's a very exaggerated muscular build for Venom. Now, this guy, in terms of his articulation, it's it's kind of pathetic. You know, this guy, I don't think he even has 5 points of articulation. He might just only have four. Like this guy has no neck, so his head does not move at all. His arms just rotate. You know, unlike Spider-Man, there is no elbow articulation. There is no knee articulation. The only thing he can do is just kick his legs. And even then, they don't feel like they want to move all that well. Now, this leg feels stuck. And the other one doesn't, so I just kind of want to err on the side of caution here. This one feels a little bit gummy. So if this leg is stuck here, I don't want to force it. But yeah, it's a great Venom figure. Now, if I had to rate the scale on a figure of, if I had to rate this figure on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of the looks department, this guy looks like he's perfect, you know, in terms of the visuals. Visually, this guy looks like a 10. You know, he's a little bit more on the cartoony side. He's as big and massive as Venom should look. He has the giant paws with the sharp claws, the long tongue, the sharp teeth, the big eyes. I love the fact that he has the emblem and it wraps around to his back like he should have. So visually, this guy is easily a 10. Now, where it really hurts is his articulation. Like, granted, I understand that this is a budget figure aimed at kids, but it's kind of a tease that, you know, Spidey here can move his arms and they could go out, and he even has elbow and swivel. You know, this guy, he could just do this. That's it. You know, he can't, his arms can't extend outward. He can't even bend at the elbow. So for articulation-wise, you know, this guy's really hurting. And, you know, it's kind of it's a sore compromise. You know, on one hand, he looks fantastic, but on the other hand, he's very just immobile. You know, he can't really do much. So, you know, if I had to rate this guy to be on the fair side, for me, it'd have to be an even 5. You know, visually, you know, if this is just like a desk prop and you just need something to display, it's a 10. But once you start handling it, that's where it's gonna feel a little bit. You're gonna feel shortchanged, because at the very least, you know, they should have made him as articulated as Spidey. You know, especially since he's a little bit larger. Because I think when a figure is larger, I think there's more room to play around. But I think if they did, you know, the price point on this guy would probably be a lot higher. But yeah, it's still a fun figure. I'm still glad I bought this. You know, for $21.99, it's decent. And, you know, don't forget, it does come with a rocket launcher. And since we're on the subject of, like, budget Venom figures, I thought it'd be fun to show off a couple of Venom and Spider-Man figures. You know, looking at these toys here, they kind of made me think of, you know, this might be, you know, a child's first Spider-Man and Venom figure. So then I'm like, okay, let's go back in the time machine. Let's pull out a couple of old ones. So these were Toy Biz's original first foray into the Marvel superheroes, and this was Toy Biz's first Spider-Man figure and their first Venom figure. Spider-Man, I believe, was in Wave 1. Venom was an odd figure because I don't remember him being on the back of Wave 1. But I do remember him coming out not too long after this figure came out. I remember I was at Walmart and I saw this on the shelves and it blew me away because I didn't realize they were making a Venom figure. And he felt leaps and bounds beyond some of the other figures at the time. You know, there was that horrible Thor that was in that light blue, had no cape. There was Surfer, there was Captain America, and there was that Hulk figure. But for some reason, Venom felt like it was a figure that the designers took a little bit more time with. He was a lot bigger than the other figures. He felt like, you know, they did their homework, and he kind of almost resembled how he appeared like in the McFarlane Spider-Man issues. This guy, you could remove his back, and then you could fill it up with slime. And then you press this button in the back, and the slime oozes out of his chest. And Spidey here, it always bothered me that he had these suction cups on his palms, but at the same time, it made him very playable. You know, he had some articulation, and if you wanted to, you could have him crawl up your desk or a window. So yeah, these were fun figures. I believe these came out, I want to say my freshman year of high school, I think. And If you jump a little bit further into the future, we have a Marvel Legends Venom here. And this will give you an idea of the size comparison. You know, here's a Marvel Legends Venom next to the budget Venom. And to be honest, visually, I like this guy a lot more than this. This kind of borders on that Venom I was talking about where he looks a little bit too lean. Like for me, Venom shouldn't have like a long neck. He should just be hunched over all the time and just look massive like the Hulk, just like this guy here. I never liked this body that they used on Venom. It seemed like it seemed like it was reused from like one of the Serpent Society figures, you know, where the body's a little bit larger. I want to say it might have been Cottonmouth. I think that's the same body as this guy. And over here we have one of the more recent Marvel Legends. I think this is Endgame Spidey. And this will give you an idea of the height comparison. But Marvel Legends Endgame Spidey, the Tom Holland Spideys, they're always really short and very small. So, you know, I think it's kind of, you know, semi-accurate when compared to the other Marvel Legends figures. Like, you know, there's a big size difference here. So yeah, a lot of Spidey figures, a lot of Venom figures. You know, name your poison. There's a lot of them. All right, so with that being said, you know, thanks for checking out this video. It's a little odd, you know, I just want to talk about these, but at the same time, I thought it'd be fun just to, you know, pull out a couple of other Venom and Spider-Man figures. You know, Venom and Spidey are incredibly popular characters. You know, they're so popular that, you know, each one's kind of spawned off a couple of spin-off characters. You know, there's a whole crazy, like, rogue gallery of Venom characters who share his powers and similar looks. Likewise, there's a number of different Spider-Man characters, you know, especially with Into the Spider-Verse. So yeah, excellent characters, fun toys. You know, you're always gonna have a Spider-Man figure and a Venom figure. It seems like that's always gonna be the constant in the universe. Okay, so once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for continued likes, comments, and support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I will see you at the next one. All right, later.